Welcome to The Growth Show with me as your host, Joe Camerato. I am an entrepreneur who created my company, National Business Capital, from literally $0 out of my spare bedroom to over $2 billion in business loans secured for entrepreneurs nationwide. Since 2007, I have seen just about every type of business. I provide money and help entrepreneurs access capital to scale fast, but I also know that it's possible for you as you scale to replace yourself, to build systems, processes, and great teams of people that can live on without you so you can actually enjoy your life and your company can still grow. I will not only tell you the peaks and valleys of my story, but I will also bring on world-class entrepreneurs to tell their stories and share their lessons on their growth journeys. Welcome to The Growth Show. All right, welcome to The Growth Show with me as your host, Joe Camerato. And, on my show, I'm always featuring entrepreneurs who are growing, making it happen. And that's why it's called The Growth Show. So thanks for joining today. Today, I've got an awesome entrepreneur who's growing, but doing it in a really strategic and effective way by saving himself some time. So I'm really excited to introduce Knolly Williams today. He's the business healer, empowers business leaders, realtors, and entrepreneurs to spark growth in their businesses by reconnecting to their passion and internal drives. As an international speaker and thought leader who runs 3 separate and distinct 6-figure businesses while working just 3 hours a day. I want to talk about that. He teaches thousands of entrepreneurs and business leaders how to duplicate that success. An entrepreneur for more than 40 years, Knolly has built multiple 6- and 7-figure businesses from scratch. He built a 7-figure record label in his 20s. In his 30s, became one of America's top real estate brokers, selling more than 1,000 homes as a sole agent in his first 10 years in real estate. In his 40s, he was on a seminar circuit speaking in more than 100 cities. Well, I'm really excited to have you on the show today. What an awesome intro and amazing stuff. And now you're working on your book, The 3-Hour Workday, and your seminars and stuff. So I want to talk about that. But welcome to the show, Knolly.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. So good to be here. And yeah, I wanted to call the book The 3-Hour Workday, and they pushed back on that. So it's called 3 Hours a Day, but it's really the same thing, isn't it?
Okay, got it. Got it. I apologize. So 3 hours a day, but I was checking out, the book. I can't wait to read it.
Thank you.
But I'm like, 3 hours a day, like really?
That
Are
sounds
you making it happen in 3 hours a day?
Yeah, that sounds crazy, doesn't it? It sounds ridiculous. Well, what I found out, Joe, and like most entrepreneurs, you listening right now, and if this, by the way, I love your show, Joe, and more entrepreneurs. I want to turn more on my tribe onto it because you really cover some great stuff and you've got a business mind. So, if you haven't looked at Joe's background, you've got to check it out. Incredible. So what I found, Joe, when I first started working as an entrepreneur, I started as an entrepreneur at age 12. We'll talk about that. But the last time I had a W-2, I was 22 years old, 22, 23 years old. And that was 30 years ago. And at the beginning, of course, I worked 18 hours a day, 16 hours a day. I worked all the time. If I wasn't sleeping, I was working, right? At the beginning. And the hustle and grind is very important. But what I've learned after starting several businesses from scratch is that the hustle and grind is actually a season. It's not a life sentence. It doesn't have to be. And eventually I learned that there were only a couple of things in my business that were really moving the needle. In fact, the other thing I learned, Joe, was that all entrepreneurs only ever have 2 problems to solve. And if you can solve those 2 problems, your life becomes very, very fun and easy. And the first problem is pretty easy to solve. The second problem is going to take more or less the rest of your career to continue solving. But if you're not solving one of those 2 problems, then you're probably doing something that you shouldn't be doing. So 3 hours a day is really a concept where, and I'll kind of put a bow on it. It's a concept where even if you work an 8-hour day, there are 2 big picture priorities that you should be doing for 3 hours a day, because those are the 2 big picture priorities that are going to move the needle 90% in your business. So if you want to make $1 million this year, 900,000 of it is going to come from these 2 big picture priorities. And everything else that you do is going to result in the other 10%. So, which is and so what I say, Joe, is that 90% of the things that most entrepreneurs do every day is busy work. It doesn't really move the needle. It's not really moving the
Yeah.
needle, in my opinion.
So what are the two things that will that get you there? You mentioned the two things. What are that that'll get you
So
to 90%?
yeah, so first of all, the only two problems that you'll ever face as an entrepreneur is you don't have enough money or you don't have enough time.
Yeah.
Outside of supply chain, now depending on what business you're in, you might have a supply chain issue, but outside of that, that's it. You don't have enough money, you don't have enough time. The money problem is solved, and that's cash flow, right? And the money problem is really solved by generating leads and closing sales. Those are the only two things that solve that problem: lead generation and appointments or closing sales, depending on what you're. If you build funnels, then you might have that built into the funnel itself. But so those are the two things.
Still
Now,
going to drive the leads though.
you
Yeah.
still got to create the lead. You still have to create clients and customers for your product. Once you figure that out, and by the way, Joe, there's a lot of people that have really figured this out, and most of them are my clients because they're already making 300, 400, 500,000 a year. They want to take it to $1 million, but they're already working 18 hours a day, so they don't know how they can. They're making good money, but they're working all the time.
Yeah.
And so what they did was they got out of the rat race and onto the hamster wheel. So the way to solve that problem is through branding and leadership. Of course, you still got the lead generation and the appointments and sales and all that happening, but somebody else is doing that for you. And now you're just a brand ambassador. Now you're doing podcasts like Joe. You're doing maybe a TV show. Maybe you write a book. Maybe you've got you're doing YouTube. You're doing things for your brand, and then you're leading your team. In other words, you become an orchestra conductor, which is very different than a band leader. Like a band leader, Joe, they've got to wake up the band members. They've got to order the food. They've got to book the gigs. They've got to make sure they go to bed on time. An orchestra conductor actually has a team also of musicians, but they really don't have to. They're highly professional, and all they're doing is making sure that everybody stays in rhythm, if you will. But yeah, those are the only two things you have to worry about, depending on where you are.
Makes sense. And so take us back to the beginning, in your 20s, you started, this seven-figure record label. Really curious to kind of hear about that. How'd you kind of get started? You said you had a W-2 till you're about
23. I was 23 when I gave that up.
Yeah. It's funny.
Yeah,
I think
and
I had
I started
one
working
about
from
25.
home. Yeah. You're what's that?
I said I think I had one till probably about 25.
20, There you go. There you go.
Same
Trajectory. And you probably started very young as well. Yeah.
I was always, I worked any chance I could get. And before I could get a job, because I was too young. And even though I tried to get them all the time and people would just laugh at me, I would do anything I could around the neighborhood. My first business was buying bicycles, finding bicycles that were beat up in the neighborhood, painting them and reselling them for a profit.
Yeah, I love it. I sold, so I started when I was as an entrepreneur at age 12. And I used to subscribe to Business Opportunities magazine. And this magazine, man, was like, I didn't let the other kids know I was reading it because it was like, I didn't want to get made fun of.
That's funny. Yeah, now you'd be really cool.
I didn't know any other kids that were 12 and 13 reading this thing. But now I realize it was just a magazine.
I can't tell you the magazines I was reading at 12 on the show.
Well, I figured out later, Joe, the whole thing was just advertisements. It was one franchise opportunity after another. And I was like, wow, there's so many different ways to make money. So it just enchanted me. And my dad was an entrepreneur. He came from Trinidad. And when he came to America, I'm first generation American. When he came to America, he was like, man, this is it, and he made money. He was a hustler though. He was on that grind. So when I turned 20, I knew that I wanted to get into rap, hip hop. But I started doing Christian rap when I was about 18. And I started a record label and a magazine at the age of 23, quit my job, raised $1,800 from family and friends. And within about 4 or 5 years, that label was making 150,000 a month. I was bringing in, and of course, I had a lot of employees. I had a big payroll. I had lots of overhead. But we had a very nice. We had a big, 6,000 square foot home. We had 10 acres. I bought that house when I was 26 years old.
Nice.
And we were doing it, man. And I thought that it would always be that way until I went bankrupt. 3 years later, the music industry changed, and I didn't change with it. And I ended up, and I was putting in so many hours in that business, Joe. 16-hour days, 15, 18 hours, 6 days a week. And I said, man, there's got to be another way. There's got to be a better way. And that's when I got into real estate. I started on a path of discovering a better way to be an entrepreneur and not have to work all the time.
That's awesome. And so so what happened from there? You went, you had the challenges, and listen, we've all been there.
Yeah.
I started my business and then went right into 08, in 07, went right to 08, 09 recession, and then, had everything on the line, and it was a scary time.
Some of my stuff crossed the line.
Yeah.
On the other side. Yeah. It wasn't good. Yeah.
No, I fought through it. And, so I definitely get that. So from there, did you roll into real estate? What happened after, you cleaned up the dust and stuff from the record label?
Yeah. So our house was in foreclosure. But we had my sister-in-law was letting us borrow her credit card so we could get cash advances to pay our mortgage. and we did sell the house in the nick of time. And I paid my realtor $29,310 to sell the house.
Yeah.
And when I saw that commission, I was like, hey, I wonder if I could do that. This guy sold one thing, and he made that kind of money. And it didn't really look like he worked that hard to me. Okay. And so I said, I think I could do that. And so I talked to Jack McDonald's, got to sell my house. And he said, man, you could totally do this. And he sort of ushered me into the real estate industry. And what I did, one of the first things I did, Joe, I took to it really well because I'm a sales. I study sales, marketing, and branding. That's what I've been studying since my early 20s. And that's really, it was like very, well, I'm going to use the word easy. It was like so easy. Like I was like, this is so easy, the money here. But I was working a lot. And I said, I have to figure out, like, what do I actually have to do? So what I did, Joe, back then was I took out a Big Chief notepad, a yellow notepad, and I wrote down every single thing that I did. And I worked mostly with sellers on a listing. Okay, a listing. And it was 46 activities from step 1 all the way through step 40, which was to close the transaction. Step 1 is to generate the lead. Step 40, close. And then six different tasks that happened after closing. And then I rated them on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 means I hate it. 5 means I love it. And 4 means I really like it. If it's a 3, I like it. If it's a 2, I don't like it. So I resolved, after going through all the 46 different tasks that I would do on a transaction, I was only going to ever do 4s and 5s. In other words, I have to really like it or love it, or I'm not going to do it.
Got it.
And it was really a short list. And actually, when you looked at it, there were very few things that even required a license that I would do. Like there was only, I think, 3 or 4 things on the list that even required a license. So I decided I'm going to delegate for everything else. And I'm only going to do the things I love. And that's kind of where this journey started, if you will. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love how you broke down because I'm all about processes. Like, you've got to have great processes in any business to crush it. You definitely have to delegate. And as you grow your business, you've got to replace yourself over and over and over again.
Yep.
And I actually love that you broke down all the steps. And I would have never guessed 47 steps in a real estate transaction. I'd be like, you list the house, show it to a few people, close it, closing, is there 5 steps? But it's actually really fun to break things down, how many steps there are.
Right.
I love how you rated it, because that's something I've been focusing on as I continue to grow and scale is like, what are the things that I really love? The things I don't love, they wind up, not getting done as much.
Right.
So where do I need to put, the people in place that are good at those things that I'm not, and
Right.
where I can shift
Right.
my time, so I can put, like you were saying before, and you're spot on, like 90% of your time into, the things that are going to really move the needle. Otherwise, you're just doing a bunch of busy work. And,
Yeah.
all right, it's great you have a calendar filled and you show up to stuff, but if you're not like moving the needle, like what the hell are you doing? And
It doesn't make sense, because busyness doesn't equals business.
correct. Yeah.
And for me, it's income producing activities, which
Yes.
to me, I define it as I'm generating fresh cash, okay, new cash flow, or I'm creating residual wealth, residual income, or future wealth. If I'm not doing one of those two things, then I shouldn't be doing it. And so when I look at like, and I've taught many people in different industries this, but in the real estate field, generating the lead was something that was on my plate. But after I generated the lead, you know, it, it's going to close. And so I'm not really generating any fresh money by working that deal. Like, I'm done. And
Yeah.
I would explain to my clients, I say, have you ever flown on an airplane commercial? Yeah, sure. Well, back in the day, before it got weird to fly, the first person that would greet you was the captain, right when you got on the airplane. And I remember, because I started flying when I was 13, and the captain was there. Hey, welcome, welcome. And the last person that you saw was the captain. Now, I asked him, I said, did you see the captain during the flight? No. Does the captain give you a blanket, a pillow, peanuts, maybe a glass of water, or an adult beverage, maybe some wine or beer? No. And my job is to fly this plane from here to Seoul. You're not going to see me, but don't get it twisted. The captain was there the whole time, even though you didn't see him.
Yeah.
And so we just signed the paperwork. You're not going to see me for the rest of the transaction, but I'm in the cockpit taking this bird from here to Seoul.
Yeah.
That's what you want, right? Yeah, that's what I want. And I got results. And so that's all they cared about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so
get my house sold and get it for the number that I want.
That's it.
Yeah.
I taught my massage therapist the same system. She was down. It was just her working in a chiropractic office by herself. And she said, could you teach me my system? I said, well, sure. But it's back then I wasn't really teaching it to other people, but I realized it can work in any profession. I taught it to her. Now she has actually 3 locations. She's got over 50 massage therapists that work for her. She gets 50% of every booking. So even though she's not getting the full, it's like I ask people, would you rather have 100% of a grape or 50% of a watermelon?
Yeah.
Well, I'll take 50%. She's got 50% of a watermelon. So she gets 50% of 50 different LMTs of what they book. And she's working about 3 hours a day.
That's awesome. Good stuff. So it works. Yeah. It's real.
Yeah. The thing is that when you get into most entrepreneurs have never shed their employee paradigm. So they own a job. They don't own a business. And they're just acting like employees. When the 8-hour workday, that's like 100 years old. I mean, when you think about it, every industry has advanced in the last 100 years than all recorded history. Okay, the medical industry, the food industry, you name it. Computers weren't even around. Okay, but you look at electronics, any industry, the aerospace, all industries have advanced more in the last 100 years than in all recorded history.
Yeah.
So why hasn't the workday advanced for the entrepreneur? The elites created what they call a working class, and probably your parents and my parents were part of that. So we grew up being part of the work, thinking that, okay, we're part of the middle class, working class, whatever. But the reality is that was an invention. The purpose of a business is to serve the desires and needs of the entrepreneur, of the owner, not the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah, and some businesses I think have really done well, though they've helped serve the needs of their employees, which
sure, I agree with that.
Outpaced a lot of others.
Yeah. And I'm not saying employees should be working 3 hours a day. Okay,
And listen, And I think too, to get to 3 hours a day, you got to do a lot more hours, right? Initially,
Yeah, there's work to it. So it's
you
just
got to
like,
get your business there. Like you don't.
absolutely.
I think it's important just because
It's a
like
blueprint.
there's so much stuff on the internet, social media that makes entrepreneurship just look so magical. And there's a lot of learning. You get your butt
Yeah,
kicked in the beginning, and to get to that point of 3 hours a day, there's a lot of hours that's put into it. But I definitely agree with you that you can, build a business and if you structure it right, build up processes, systems, and the right people,
yeah,
you absolutely can do that. And I think you got to get really clear too with like what is it that you want, right? Because
absolutely.
if you're at, if you're, at, 100 grand, a year, and you want to get to, 250 or 500,000 or 1 million or beyond that, right? Then those things are going to probably take different amounts of, work and investment and time. And
Sure.
so I think it's important, like people just get clear where they want to be. And some people say that I want to grow. And listen, I'm all about growth and the Grow Show. Some people want to, grow, but they don't necessarily want to do the work that's there or want to take on the stress of the responsibility. So I think you got to like really get clear, like where you want to be. And I think, today we get inundated with so much stuff that I think it's hard for a lot of people to say, yeah, no, I'm good with this, like works for me.
Yeah,
Where I feel like there's so much pressure to be like, all these different things that,
sure.
where we think we need to be one way or another. So I think it's just you got to get really clear with yourself and be okay with that
Yeah.
and not, get kind of caught up in, like with the keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, Joe, and a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize this, but the natural trajectory of every business is I to we to they. That's the
Yeah.
natural trajectory.
Yeah.
Versus I do it, I'm
Yeah.
by myself, I'm in the grind, I'm on the
Yeah. That's
hustle,
cool.
I'm
I've
doing it.
actually never heard that one. I like that.
Yeah. Then it's we do it. It's, I've got a team. We're all doing it together. And then it's they do it. If you think about it, the bigger your business gets, the less you should have to work. I tell
Yeah.
people, like, if you owned a McDonald's restaurant, I think they still call them restaurants, right? Anyway, if you own one,
Yeah.
if you owned one, you would probably be working all the time. You own one location, right? You're just getting started in
Correct.
the
Yeah.
franchise. But now let's fast forward 15 years. You own 13 locations. You've got you've got managers over every location. You've got one main person, and then so you got, like, say 13 managers, and now you've got 3 people that manage the 13. So you're really only reporting to, like, 3 people report to you, and so it still looks like a small team. And there's really, all you're doing is looking at numbers on a spreadsheet. Like, you're not really, having to. I mean, when you had one location, you had a cot in the back. You never went home.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny because a lot of people are get fearful of growth and releasing
Yeah,
responsibilities and
sure,
hiring more people. And sometimes to do that, you got to take a few steps back in your income to take
sure.
some big steps forward and step ups in your
Yeah,
income. But it is funny, like as you actually like being like bigger, it actually gets easier.
absolutely,
It's hard sometimes
absolutely.
to get there, like getting to that point, you got to fight through these glass ceilings. But it is funny if you just keep it just you and 2 people,
Yeah,
everyone, going to be doing everything. Having
all
more
the
people
time.
does make it less easier. And it's
Yeah,
funny, a lot of people are afraid to actually get there, but that's exactly what they want. you know
yeah. And what I tell people, it's basically control. They don't. A lot of people don't want to give up control, and trust. A
Yeah.
lot of people don't have trust, and I get that. And so in the book, I show you how to hire people, who to hire. Most people, Joe, they want to hire a person just like themselves. That's the
Mm.
last person you should hire. Like, you should hire the opposite of you. You personality
100%.
profile. Yeah,
I,
and so that's
when,
super important. Go
I
ahead.
love that. And when
Yeah,
I first got started, I thought I needed to hire everyone that was like me. And
me too.
we definitely don't want a bunch of me's running around.
Yeah,
Got the
now we
visionary,
got 2 people not getting
like
anything done. Yeah.
you got all these people with big visions and no one executing.
Exactly. You have the opposite of you. And so what I also teach in the book too, Joe, is that, for every time I hired a person, I created a side hustle for that individual to be over so that I didn't have to pay their salary. Okay, can I explain that? 'Cause
Interesting.
Yeah, this is the biggest problem that when entrepreneurs come to me, I can't afford to hire anybody. Nolly, you're telling me to get people. I can't afford people. Do you see? Well, that's the wrong. See, when you say you can't afford something, that's an affirmation.
Mm.
I can't afford it. You're now you're talking to your subconscious mind. 95%, and this is science, okay? And I have a lot of science and studies in the book. 95% of the things that happen in your daily life are autonomic. They're out of your control. They're in the subconscious or the unconscious mind.
Yeah.
And the breath you just took, the heartbeat that's going, every 95% of the stuff that's happened. Now it used to be 88% they teach, but the new science says 95%. There's only 5% of the things that you do every day that are actually conscious, that you consciously do. And so when you train your subconscious mind and say, well, I can't afford it. No, the right question is, how can I afford? How can I afford to hire somebody? How can I afford to fly first class all the time? When you start asking the right question, your subconscious mind now has something to work with. And so what I teach people is, for example, I've got a guy that's does all my video editing because I like to do YouTube. And but I don't like to pay people. Who likes to pay people? I don't. So I pay him he's in the Philippines. I pay him $1,000 a month, okay, to do all my editing. And I created a deal where anybody that wants video editing, they have to pay $300 a month. We'll do as much video editing as you need within reason. And I got 5 people that stood up and said, yes, that's what I'll do. And that's it. Now my guy has a side business with 5 people that he's doing their video. It only takes him about 20% of his day. And the other 80% of his day works for me. Now he's bringing in $1,500 to the company, and I'm paying him $1,000. I'm not having to pay for it. You can do the same thing if you had to hire a VA and it was like $1,200. Then you just basically create a coaching group. You say, look, I know how to do X, Y, and Z. If you want to learn, it's $100 a month. We meet twice a month for 1 hour or 90 minutes. It's all by Zoom. You get 12 people in your class. Now you've got your employee paid for it. It's only costing you 2 hours a month of your time. And now you've got a 40-hour-a-week person. So I have a lot of creative ways like that I write about in the book. But when you hire somebody, they should be able to pay for themselves through some other, opportunity that you create. I call it leverage labor. It's not free labor, but it's leverage labor. When I was in the real estate business, I'll give you one last example. For every listing that I took, I charged a transaction fee of $5.95. Okay. So I would take about 10 listings a month. So I was making another $6,000 a month in these admin fees. Okay. It was another revenue center, profit center for me. That covered the cost of several administrative people. And so you see what I'm saying? So
in order to list a house with you is $595. Did people push back on that, or that you're
never,
like, hey, I'm never.
Never. I mean, I was 6%
and that covered the cost of your assistant and everything else, right?
Everything. And what I would the way I would position it, Joe, and people knew. I mean, back in the day, 2008, I was the #1 solo practitioner in Austin, Texas, out of 9,800 agents. Austin Business Journal came out with the report. I was ranked #1. That year, I did 96 transactions by myself. But I had leverage. See, this is what people don't understand. The reason why I was working 3 hours a day, which eventually I was working less than that, was because I figured out that there was only 2 or 3 things that I had to do on every transaction. And then my team did everything else. And so what I would explain to people is, Joe, I'm going to get your house sold. We're going to make a lot more than you think, because look, I'm one of the top agents here in the city. And here's how have you ever gone, and I explained to him, I said, have you ever gone to see a movie, and maybe you've gone to, in our town in Austin, it was Gold Theater. Okay. Well, you can get a blanket, you can have a draft beer, any kind you want. You're gonna get a pizza while you're watching the movie. Comes out hot. Maybe you can have ribs and French fries, whatever you want. It reclines. You got a pillow. Man, it's a nice experience. But let me ask you a question: are you going to pay the same price for the movie? Of course not. It's the same movie, but you still see in the Avengers, by the way. What you're paying for is the experience. And when you hire me, you're not only going to get me, but I've got a team of people. I've got Barbara, I've got Carolyn, I've got Morris, and myself. So you're getting 4 people and it's not going to cost you 4 times as much. It's just an additional $595. That covers my, and the fact that I'm here with you right now, Joe, means that if someone was to call about your house, I couldn't pick up the phone because you and I are here. But I've got a whole team that handles all those details and will never miss an opportunity. And by the way, you don't have to pay that up front. Only when I get the result for you will you pay me that money, that $595.
Oh, wow. So they didn't pay the $595 till you sold the house?
Never.
Oh, very cool.
Never. When I get the result for you on the closing statement, you're going to pay me the $595. Because guess what? I'm going to get paid.
Yeah.
I'm going to get sold. So yeah, I never. If they had me explain it, I would. But most of the time, and I had documentation that explained how everything worked. I'm a systems guy. So yeah, very important.
Yeah, me too. It's got to be a system and a process. Otherwise, it's never going to happen. Or it's going to be chaotic, or you're going to drive more sales and fumble all over the place, and everyone's going to be upset.
Yeah,
customers and your employees.
Yeah.
So, where's your focus today, Knolly? Is it real estate still? Is the book? Is it coaching? Teaching? Like where? Where are you at today?
It's teaching, man. Teaching, because I love to teach, man. I really love it a lot, and God's been good to me. I have a residual income every month. I heard a guy from stage a couple months ago. I was at a convention, and the guy was introducing a product, and he said, "Look, I don't work for a living, And I was like, "Oh, I like that. I'm taking that one." And he was like, "Look, you don't have to buy this because I don't do anything for a living." He says, "I'm good. But if you really want," and I was like, "Oh, I like that one." And so I'm at the point now, Joe, because I have residual income that's built in. I don't, I have 335 agents now, and they're out there, they're doing their thing. I'm teaching them how to be more effective, how to be more streamlined, how to work less, how to make more money. And they're out there doing it. And so I get to just do what I love to do, man. I love to teach, train, coach, and help people reach their ultimate greatness. That's really most of what I do.
That's awesome. And is that all in Texas?
Well, I live in Puerto Rico now.
Oh, wow. Okay, very cool.
So I lived here. I moved here. My wife and I moved here exactly a year ago, and we love the tropical climate. They've got a lot of great tax incentives, here. I can see the ocean right here. The mountains are right behind me here. Beautiful.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm on an acre. I just love it.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And where are the agents? Are they all across the U.S. or
everywhere? Yeah, I've got several in India. I've got them all throughout the United States. The way our company works, I'm with eXp Realty, and you can sort of build your organization multi-level, and you get a commission on every transaction that anyone in your organization sells. So if you build the organization, you've got that sort of, I'm really set for the next 40 years, to be honest with you, the way things have gone. So I get to just play every day.
That's great.
But I was going to share with you, Joe, that what I didn't mention was this 3 hours a day. What I teach people is, let's say you're working 10 hours a day, keep that schedule, no problem. But within that schedule, you're going to incorporate 3 hours a day where you work only on the big picture priorities. Like you're going to generate leads in the morning for 90 minutes, and you're going to close sales in the afternoon for 90 minutes. I don't care what you do with the rest of your day, because that's what's going to move the needle 90% of your business.
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever, if you just want to work, no problem. But eventually you'll find that you're just doing stuff that you really don't have to do because you did the only things that matter already. And so you'll start working 7 hours, then it'll be 6, then it'll be 5. And then you'll finally realize that, look, those 2 things that you do every day that are the big picture priorities, that's really all you have to do. And then you'll have 3 hours a day like I do. But you don't have to do that because we like to work, don't we, Joe? I mean, we're entrepreneurs, man. Most of us are workaholics.
Yeah, it's in the genetics, the DNA of the blood.
It is
there. No, I completely get it. It's funny. Everyone wants to get to a place where they don't have to work. And, there's been places where I've got to with the business where things really work. And then I'm like, what I got to do something here, and then you find
you got to do something
back on.
Yeah, that's why in the book I teach the 14 life areas. So career and business is just one of the life areas. And the reason why most entrepreneurs, myself included, get stuck in that one bucket is because we haven't really kind of played with the others. Because and let's face it, I mean, we're going after that dopamine fix, right? When you got to get a deal done, or I mean, it's a rush. I mean, you like it. So now what I've learned is to get a rush out of buying one-way tickets to Spain, or going to Italy, to Venice, one of our favorite places, and just like not having a return. I mean, I'm getting a rush from other things. I still got to get the fix, right? There's no, I mean, we're human beings, right?
Of course.
But now I'm working in all the other areas of life, not just in work. And so it's just, to me, it's just fun, man. You move from the hustle and grind to ease and flow.
I love it. Good stuff. Really, really good stuff. Well, I loved hearing about all this stuff. I really can't wait to read the book. And, just like we like to wrap up on my show, everyone shares, what's something that you would share with other fellow entrepreneurs that are making it happen out there? What's one growth tip that you would leave everybody with today?
And this has kind of been overplayed. Obviously AI, you definitely want to embrace AI. Don't let it pass you up. Don't let it get you down. I was in Tel Aviv in 2018, and man, they were big in the AI in 2018. Big, like the guy would walk into his bathroom and just start talking to his mirror, and the mirror would be talking to him like AI type stuff. And and that was like 4 or 5 years ago. And so definitely embrace what's happening in your industry. Don't run away from it. Number one thing I would teach is that you want to really retrain your brain to think differently. Because if you're like me and you were taught you got to hustle, you got to grind, it's true. Like when you're building a house, if I'm building a custom home, it's going to be 9 months to a year of grind and hustle that you'll see on that job site going on. But once the house is built, you should be able to enjoy it. Yes, a toilet might break every now and then. You got to go fix it, but you should be able to enjoy what you've built. And most entrepreneurs have never gotten to the point, and may never get to the point, where they actually live in the house that they're building, right? They just enjoy it for what it is. And that's what I'm teaching. My whole thing is about taking a 5 to 7 year learning curve off the trajectory of your success. The way you're going to have more success is just rewiring your brain. My favorite book for that is by Dr. Joseph Murphy. It's called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. Because if you can rewire the way you think, much of what you're learning in business is going to come much easier. It's going to be easier for you. And you're not going to have to hustle and grind all the time based on your trauma response, right? Because we didn't even talk about this, Joe. I was an abused kid, and I was like, by damn, I'm going to show you, you said I'd never amount to anything. Watch me. So a lot of what I've grown and built was from a trauma response. I was unloved as a kid. So I've built all this to try to, get respect and love. And I want people to like me and all that. Once you get past that and you move on to your true desires, that's where the real fun comes in. And so for that, again, this is the book, man. I love it, bro. The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. Let me turn off this light.
It's funny. I've got that book and I've never
read
it. I recognize
it off. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's so good. So that would be my one tip for sure, right there.
Good stuff. I'm definitely going to read that. And I know we didn't get to go into that, but I would say that probably became a superpower of yours.
Absolutely.
And, I grew up in some wild times, and that stuff really fueled me. And I think, a lot of people let that stuff hold them back in life. So use that stuff as your superpower and let it fuel you to make it happen and to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff. Well, I appreciate you being on Knolly. This was really good stuff today. I'm excited to check out the book. I appreciate everything that you shared. I think there was a lot of nuggets and takeaways, on the show today. So thank you for those. And if folks want to check you out, want to check out the book, where can they find you and the book at?
Probably the easiest one to remember, if you can spell my name, is knolly.com, KNOLLY.com. It's a different name. It's Trinidadian, right? It's a different knolly.com, or you can go to 3hoursaday.com, the number 3hoursaday.com, and check it out. But thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate being here. I know it's a wild and crazy idea, but this is the life I've lived for many, many years. And I want more entrepreneurs to at least have the option of this: financial freedom, time freedom, and location freedom. That's what I teach. And if you want to work 12 to 15 hours a day, it should be by choice, not because you feel obligated that you have to do that.
Good stuff. I love it. Thanks for sharing all today. Really, really good episode. I appreciate your time, Knolly. Thanks for being on, and good luck with the book launch.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it, Joe.
All right, be well. Keep growing.